Welcome, everybody, to the next in our complete wellness forums. It's been a little bit of a hectic time. I apologize about that. And I'm just going to invite Diana in, if I know how to do that. What we're going to talk about tonight is a really practical and interesting subject. Hi, Diana. We're going to talk about. You can't hear me?
I can hear me in an echo.
Okay, now I hear you.
Great. So we're going to talk about something really practical, which is all this business about organic, not organic, farm raised, pasture raised, cage free, all these terms about our food. And most importantly, is it worth it? Should we do it? Should we not do it? All of that. So I guess the first thing that we should do really is to clarify our terms. Organic is a big word in today's day and age. What does organic mean?
So, organic essentially just means that the food item is produced without using pesticides, fertilizers made with like different synthetic ingredients, um, sewage, sludge, bioengineering, like genetically modified. And that all that means is that food produced in this way can then apply to the USDA and get approval for a symbol that says organic. So, let's say there are plenty of farms that are practicing with organic methods that don't have the funds or are not large enough to actually get that organic label on their crops or their food products. But for big box companies, they can and should if they are organic.
So it costs. It's not just an easy thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Takes
That's not
time.
great. Of course, there's the politics and the money that goes with all of that.
With all labeling, right?
So organic does not just mean pesticide free. I'm going to sneeze, excuse me. Maybe not. That would be a first for our community forum.
Everyone else right now, so it's very fitting.
So it does not just mean pesticide free, but it certainly does mean pesticide free.
Yes.
And, this is a whole nother kettle of fish. It means non-GMO.
Yes.
So that's important. These are some important factors. It's not just no pesticides. It's really saying this is a healthy product from A to Z.
Exactly.
And that really sort of cuts off my next question, which is it worth it? Because let's say, for example, one of my favorite things, walnuts. Mm-hmm. Walnuts come in a huge shell. Why do walnuts need to be pesticide free?
Completely agree with you on that one.
But if it's also all those other issues, then it's worth it.
True, although I would hope that we're not genetically modifying our walnuts. I would assume that if it's not like soy, corn, wheat, oats, I'm missing one other, but that it wouldn't be genetically, it might be safer to assume that, assuming it's not for your mental health at least.
But if it says organic, then you're good to go.
Correct.
It's sort of like a check. Organic means this is a healthy product, not just pesticide free, but really healthy in almost every way.
Yes, except if it's processed foods, organic doesn't necessarily mean healthy. You could use organic
For example,
sugar and you could get organic gummy bears. The ingredients are organic, it's still tons of sugar.
got it.
Mm-hmm.
So it might mean that it's healthy in terms of, I guess, the issues that we spoke about, but that doesn't make it non-junk food.
Exactly.
You can have organic junk food.
Yep. Exactly.
So even though it's organic, you still have to read labels.
Yep. And you can't assume because something says organic, it's healthy if it's more than one ingredient. But if we're talking about fruits and vegetables and meats and fish, then there's a benefit to it.
Got it. What are some of the heavily sprayed products out there in the world?
So really it's the Dirty Dozen, which changes every year. But usually it's leafy greens. Honestly, I'd have to pull up the Dirty Dozen list. I don't have it memorized.
Well, I was really going for a point that I wanted to make, which
That a
is
lot of
that
products are sprayed?
specifically coffee.
Yes. One of the
Coffee
most
is the
pesticide
most
laden crops.
pesticide sprayed crop out there. And we as Americans drink a lot of coffee, too much coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So we should really be aware that caffeine, you really need to spring for the organic coffee if you drink a lot of coffee, especially.
Yeah,
It's
if you come to
worth
us, we'll give you a whole
spending
list
the money.
of organic coffees.
So this may seem like an obvious question. Pesticides can make you sick. But what are some of the things that people get sick with from pesticides?
Primarily, so they can cause like birth defects if you, I mean, like if you get a little crazy here, right? But more importantly, they cause like they could have neurological implications. They could, but the most common thing they cause is that they're carcinogens, so they can cause cancer.
Got it. To your knowledge, has there been any link between pesticides and something like dementia, Alzheimer's, and all that?
I'm sure there has been.
That would be a good thing to know.
There's no question about it.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It promotes neurodegenerative disorders. Dementia is a neurodegenerative disorder.
Yep.
But I'd like to have a paper on that so I could, quote that directly. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's define some of the other terms. Farmed. That's mostly about fish.
Yes. So farmed fish is usually fish that is still like in the ocean, although there are fisheries, but they are in a net, so they're enclosed and they get their own feed. So it's a
That's
more so
ocean farmed.
But then
that's ocean farmed.
And then there's also like fisheries where they have
then
them and they literally feed them. It's like a farm,
So ocean farmed is better than farmed, fish
Not
farmed.
Because they're still given their own food in a farm raised ocean farm.
Well, the thing that I know, this is really going to get a little gross for 1 second. I'm sorry, I apologize. One of the issues with fish farms is that the water that they're in is not fresh. It's like being in a fish tank where the water is not really cleaned.
Mm-hmm.
So the water itself becomes very toxic to the fish. They're, let's call a spade a spade. Their pee and their poop in
Mm-hmm.
small spaces has effect on the quality of the water, which affects them because they're breathing
Yep.
that. At least in the ocean, even though they're in nets and they're being fed certain foods,
The water is cleaner.
the water is clean-ish.
But why I really avoid personally farmed fish is because they have been tested and shown to have higher levels of PCBs and dioxins, which are chemicals that were banned in the United States in the 70s, but they exist at the bottom of our ocean. And so the food that they're often being fed like these little fish that live near the bottom and eat these chemicals, and they're being ground up, and then and it lives in like the fat of these fish, these little fatty fish, and they are fed that, and so then we are then intaking that.
So I eat a ridiculous amount of salmon.
Wild.
Sometimes wild. Today I went to the deli across the street and I got salmon and vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
You're right.
wild salmon.
You're right.
They're not charging enough for it to be wild salmon. So how would I or someone like myself get tested for PCBs and things like that? Is there a test?
I know there's an environmental toxin test. I don't know if it includes PCBs. You'd have to call our friends at Vibrant, but there are environmental toxin tests out there that you collect your urine and blood, and we could test your levels.
I should be tested because I eat so much salmon, as I said, it's crazy. I eat salmon sometimes twice a day.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's so good.
What's the difference between wild salmon and organic salmon?
So wild salmon is 16 times less likely to have PCBs in them. They can still
Why
get
is
some
that?
because of the food that they're not being fed. They're eating like other fish. They're not being fed this specific food. So I think but they're testing these fish. Um, yeah. Also, they are higher in omega-3s, higher in multiple different vitamins. You're just getting way more bang for your buck, even though it is a little bit more expensive in terms of health-wise.
Even though the buck is much bigger too.
Yeah, but your bang is way bigger.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I bought some wild salmon the other day. It was a ridiculous price, but it's what I wanted. We were having some guests, so I had to get a fair amount. The fish was like $90. I mean, it was.
Your best bet is getting it at like farmers markets, or I personally get it at like a small fishery, like fish markets. Or online, there's a bunch of websites that sell sustainably raised fish.
And they send it to you frozen?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever done that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like that salmon?
Yeah. I just defrost it and eat it the next day.
I just never found that salmon very tasty.
My taste buds are probably less sensitive than yours.
I'm just telling you, I didn't do it that many times. I
There's
think
no
we did it
question,
twice.
though. I think it's so much better when you buy it fresh and then I freeze it.
And what's the difference between cage-free and free range?
Like eggs.
Eggs, meat.
So when it comes to cage free, all it means is that the animal, so like let's say with chickens, they're uncaged, but it doesn't mean that they're free range or roaming outdoors. Versus free range is really like not really a regulated term, but hens have some access to the outdoors apparently. But there really aren't any like specific guidelines for this. So it's kind of a marketing ploy because farms aren't
But the
required.
best thing is grass fed.
For eggs, the best thing is certified organic pasture raised. So you know the food that the food that the chickens are eating or the hens are eating, and you know that they are pasture raised, so they're running around as you would hope they are on beautiful pastures.
Got it. And how about meats?
Meat is a little trickier too. Organic is great, but they could be being fed organic corn or organic grains, right? Versus if it's grass fed, you know they're being fed grass. Which grass fed beef is typically lower in cholesterol. There's more omega 3s in it. There's more vitamin E, more beta carotene. But grain fed, so if you go to a steakhouse, is a little bit cheaper, and the taste is slightly improved because there's more marbling or more fat because they're grain fed, right? If you just ate starches all day, you'd have more fat on your bones.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So if I go into the supermarket and I'm not looking for organic or I'm not looking for anything special, and I pick up a steak to buy, it's probably grain. It's from grain-fed cows and not that great for you.
Unless you're going to a farm and or a farmer's market, and you can talk to them and they tell you how it's fed and et cetera, but they don't have any money to have those labels.
Gotcha. What else should we talk about in this regard?
So fruits and vegetables. So as you were saying, like with walnuts, right, plants in general, if it has a really thick rind, you're probably okay not buying organic. This is something you could save on, right? So like think bananas and avocados. However, one thing you want to look at is the little produce label on fruits and vegetables. So if it has a 3 or a 4, it's 5 digits, right? And if it starts with a 3 or a 4, then it's conventionally raised. If it starts with an 8, it's been genetically modified. I have yet to see an 8 in the store, but they exist. So if you see an 8 banana, don't buy it unless you want genetically modified bananas. And then number 9, when it starts with a 9, it means it's organic.
Why wouldn't I want a genetically modified banana?
Because we don't really know what these crops, what's happening, what are they using, what chemical, like what's happening behind the scenes, and we're seeing an increase in food sensitivities, intolerances, and diseases in the United States, and all we're doing is genetically modifying our crops so that they can withstand more chemicals. So really all it is that I want to spray a group of berries, and I don't want them to die from it or fight back. So what I do is I genetically modify them so that they can withstand more. That's really not what I want to be personally eating.
But on the other hand, if we were in a place where we did not have access to food and it was between starving or eating a genetically modified banana, you have the genetically modified banana.
100%. 100%. And that goes for everything. If you're deciding between like a processed food or a non-organic berries, you choose the non-organic berries. It's fine. It's more just if you have a choice. Oftentimes the price is not that different depending on where you shop. It's great to get organic if it's on the Dirty Dozen list.
Got it. What else should we talk about?
I think that covers almost everything.
So the bottom line is obviously go organic when you can. Go farm raised, grass fed when you can. The more you do, the better off you will be, the healthier you will be. There's no questions about that.
And pasture raised for eggs, wild for fish.
And don't forget to still check the ingredients if it's processed. Because if it's organic, doesn't mean it's not packed full of sugar.
Yep.
Even if it's organic sugar.
Yeah. Technically, that's like, okay, so you're not getting your sugar crops are not being laden with pesticides. Great, but sugar.
Sugar is sugar. Okay, Diana, thank you for doing this on a Tuesday.
Yeah, we hope this was helpful for everybody. There's a lot of confusion out there, and there's a lot of labeling that's used as a marketing ploy. Natural, free range, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I would say the most important thing to do is read labels.
More than calories. Read the ingredients.
We should do a show on packaging and reading labels.
I love that.
Next week I'm out, but the week after, maybe on a Monday. Can you ever do Mondays?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Mondays.
Mondays are our times.
The next show will not be this coming Monday, but the following. We're going to do reading packaging labels.
Can't wait.
Find some juicy ones.
I will.
Great. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.